take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Games rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flame. Locked on the case, we investigate.
This is 12-gauge investigative. Let's jump
you'll
in.
ever need. 12-gauge investigate. We make them bleed. No games, no censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12-gauge investigative.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Nina, I'm sorry that you can't get your live working. I tried to call you to help you. I don't know what happened with that. Can y'all hear me okay? Let me know if y'all can hear me all right. Well, I decided to get back on. I didn't, before I even knew that Nina was going to be on, so I decided to read a little bit of this book, continue reading it. If you've been with me while I've been reading this in increments, thank you so much for joining me. And here we're going to continue on. We have gotten to the point where, we were at the point where the police had came to the first noise complaint. So here we go. I can go get them real quick, the young woman said, closing the door on him. The front stoop went black again. A whole minute passed. Nobody came back. Another of the officers lifted a backpack from the nearby gravel. It was heavy with cans. There's a lot of fucking alcohol in there, he said. One of the officers knocked loudly again 7 times. The noise inside down. But still, nobody answered. We're only here for a noise complaint, the officer shouted. Come to the damn door. Another officer giggled off camera. Soon all 3 officers circled the outside of the home, shining their flashlights. We're not leaving, an officer shouted toward a box fan ticking from a second-floor window. They'd seen shadows cross the room. He shined his strobe through it, but nobody came to the window. We can also see you, another officer shouted through the window. Through a crease in the curtains of the front-facing kitchen window, another officer's body cam footage showed a set of golf clubs. Months later, the bag and the clubs would be tagged as potential evidence. The removal from the house streaming on most major networks. The clubs and a mattress stained with blood. Hunter Johnson and another student eventually answered the door for the police. Hunter with his white necklace, a polo again, eyes bright and wide, the other boy with a floppy hair and a t-shirt. So I just looked for everyone that lives here, and they're not here right now, Hunter said. No one's here that lives here at all. The disbelieving but practiced officer waited patiently. No one's here that lives here, Hunter repeated. Another officer interjected, so everyone here is trespassing. Well, no one's here that's trespassing, but no one's here that lives here right now. I have no clue where they went. No clue. Hunter's mannerisms and speech suggested he wasn't sober. They left and went over to some other party. His friend spoke over him. He, too, wore a white necklace and had a surfer boy look. Who does live here? Another officer asked. What are their names? I'm actually not sure, Hunter's friend said. I live across the street. I just came over. I haven't drank a drop. Male, female, a cop with a beard asked. I think it's mainly females, Hunter's friend said. I think it's like 4 females. Hunter said nothing, shaking his head as if he hadn't a clue. What sorority are they affiliated with? The officer said. I don't know, the other kid said. I don't know, Hunter also said. I am not stupid, the officer eventually told them. Hunter smiled. The officer pressured them further, patient but stern. I'd rather deal with this as a noise complaint than get a hold of the Greek council and the Greek board and all of that, and the dean of students, and playing all these stupid fucking games. He shined his flashlight at the backpack of the booze on the ground, adding an implicit threat. I guarantee you there's a lot of underage drinking here. Do you want us to try to get a name or a phone number? The boy with Hunter asked. If you could, the cop said. The two boys went inside. The cop started emptying the backpack of its alcohol, opening and then pouring what looked like a dozen cans of Truly vodka seltzer into the weeds. A few moments later, Hunter Johnson returned and held out an iPhone to the police. Matty Mogan's name was on the screen, glowing in the dark of Hunter's hand. An officer took the phone and put her on speaker. Can you hear me, Matty? Yes, I can hear you. Her voice was like Kaylee's talking to the police, business casual and sober sounding. Do you live at 1122 Queen Street? The officer had confused Queen with King as they interjected just beyond the property. Matty didn't correct him. Yes, I do. The reason that we're here is that we received noise complaint, loud music, partying. Once we approached the house, people started running away. They left a bunch of alcohol behind. We're not even coming for the alcohol. We're coming for the noise complaint. Matty remained silent, listening. The officer seemed old enough to be her father. Eventually, he scolded her. You have a house full of random people. He was saying that to Matty needed to be careful. Without exactly saying it, he issued Matty a verbal warning for the noise violation. He told her she needed to come home. Chapter 22. At the University of Idaho Vigil for her daughter, a special event held to assist students through the mourning process, Ben Mogan wore a gray suit, the jacket buttoned tightly across the sturdy chest. His cropped haircut, chiseled jawline, and prominent goatee made him look tough. The voice he soon addressed the crowd with was anything but. He approached the podium and shakily unfolded a piece of paper filled with prepared remarks, which he would eventually stray from. His breathing was shallow, his body appeared stiffened by grief. The air seemed sucked out of the room by Ben Mogan's obvious pain. He shifted his balance from knee to knee and hooked his thumbs into the front pockets of his suit pants, jiggling them with nervousness. Mattie May, she was, having only just begun, he'd already stopped to catch his breath. She was Karen and my only child that we ever had, he finally said. He then struggled through a list of the beautiful things about Mattie that he could remember. At the moment, her happiness, her intelligence. She was funny. She was delightful, the perfect little baby. On the network streaming the event, an Instagram photo of Mattie filled the screen. She wore a bright white summer dress in a wooded park setting. She was tan, leaning slightly backward, her blonde hair draping across one shoulder for the photo. Ben Mogan smiled nervously. He spoke of how he used to show Maddie's photo to explain who he was to new acquaintances who wanted to get to know him. Well, I have this daughter, he'd say. He'd tell them she was on the dean's list at college. that she worked hard and she had great friends. There was often nothing noteworthy about himself that he felt like sharing other than his adoration of Maddie, which new people in his life tended to learn a lot about. We love going to see live music, he said. That's always been my favorite thing to do. So I started taking her to concerts when she was younger. We saw some really good shows together. He explained that Maddie was upset when the popular musician Mac Miller was touring nearby and she couldn't get tickets because the concert had sold out. Ben had desperately wanted to surprise Maddie with tickets to the show, the one she later posted about on Instagram. And I didn't know what I was going to do, he said into the microphone, but his smile widened and the pace of his storytelling picked up. And I entered all these radio station contests, and the night before it happened, I won 4 tickets and got to bring her and her friends, and they were meet and greet tickets. After the show, he and Maddie and her friends had been introduced to Mac Miller. He explained, that was one of the happiest moments Ben had to be in Maddie's dad coming through for her in the clutch. And he loved seeing her excitement for live music match his own. Ben was a man who cared about the little things that he loved about his daughter did too. Many in the audience listening to him were holding one another close. With heartache in his voice, he spoke about Maddie's boyfriend, Jake Schreiger, whom he'd been dating for almost a year at the time of her murder. It was her first real relationship. I'm so glad that he got to have at least a little taste of what it's like to be in love with someone. And he choked on tears. Just a really great guy. They treated each other the way you're supposed to. And more tears came, but he pushed through them. I was really proud to call him my daughter's boyfriend. Maybe someday they would have gotten married, you know? He looked downward, then added without looking up. It seemed like it, at least. After the vigil, Maddie's father returned to his home, full of acoustic guitars, the 2 jobs he worked, the counseling sessions he attended. He'd been at the movies by himself on November 13th when Maddie's mother called to tell him about the murders. Because he was in the theater, he hadn't responded right away. Then his own mother called, and he knew something was wrong. He and Maddie's mother had cried together that day on the phone. The horror was unspeakable. The first Christmas without Maddie was excruciating. The snow had been falling like crazy in North Idaho, but he couldn't enjoy its beauty. His girl was gone, and no one knew who had taken her life. Eventually, Ben walked into a tattoo shop in Spokane Valley in Washington State, just across the border from Coeur d'Alene, and sat down for his first tattoo ever, a set of angel wings, to match the tattoos Maddie and several of her sorority sisters had gotten. His father and stepfather, both in their 70s, joined him. In the tattoo parlor, they rolled up their shirt sleeves. Within minutes, the small black stencil of Maddie's wings had been inked into Ben's arm. Part 5. Hope you are enjoying this. Thank you so much for being here, those of you that are here in the chat. Happy Memorial Day to you all, and let's not forget it is indeed Maddie Mae Mogan's heavenly birthday. Chapter 23. Xana Kernodle grew up in Post Falls, nestled in the heavily wooded area of Coeur d'Alene Mountains, halfway to Washington State, on the winding Spokane River. She had an older sister, Jasmine, a confident, confidant in her early years, although the girls' parents, Jeff and Kara, didn't last long together. In Xana's younger years, Jeff was briefly incarcerated on drug-related charges. Xana's mother was frequently incarcerated as well, even reportedly just weeks after Xana's birth. For a time, when Xana and her sister were still very young, both parents were in trouble at both parents were in trouble at once, and the girls needed to live with relatives. Xana's Aunt Kim, a big-hearted church-going Christian, took them in. Her own children were grown, and she raised Xana and Jasmine for just under 2 years in Post Falls, loving them both dearly and offering the structure that had been missing from their lives. Raising her nieces felt like a blessing to Kim. She'd had fun with the girls. Xana had been a joyful, impish child, her aunt recalled. On one occasion when Xana was small, Kim was looking for her in the house and found her hiding out in the bathroom. "She found my Crisco," Kim said of Xana during the Post Falls memorial service on December 2nd, "and she'd wiped it all over her body like it was a body lotion." She laughed at the memory. The bathroom had been covered in Crisco as well. Maybe that's to never forget the foundation. It was all over the walls and on the floors. They lived in the house with squeaking floorboards, and the two girls slept in a room together. Many nights, Xana liked to stay awake past her bedtime, getting out of bed to horse around. "Aunt Kim, Xana won't go to bed, and she's keeping me up," Jasmine would complain from the room down the hall. Kim would get out of her own bed to investigate, but her steps creaking along the floorboards would alert Xana to her imminent arrival. Every time she could hear Xana's little feet scurrying back to bed, and by the time Kim had reached the children's room, Xana would be back under her covers, pretending nothing had happened. It became a game they played together after a while. The girl's mother continued to struggle with drugs and the fallout of addiction, but eventually their father put the pieces of his life back together, and Xana and Jasmine went to live with him. He stayed healthy, and the stability lasted. The girl became active in sports at a young age, and Xana was a standout gymnast in her late elementary and junior high years. Todd McLean was her gymnastics coach at Flip Factory Gymnastics in North Idaho for about 6 years, and his daughter, Sydney, was one of Xana's best friends during that time. Xana's dad, divorced from the girl's mom by now, was working his job in construction and working hard to raise his children alone. The schedule was hectic for him, and Xana would go from gymnastics straight to her coach's home until her father could pick her up after work. "If you had spent 5 minutes with her, you would have fallen in love with her," her coach told an ABC reporter about those years. "She just loved everybody, and she was so witty, so funny. She would have drawn you in." McLean's daughter, now a gymnastic coach herself at McLean's new academy in Florida, agreed. "She was just the funniest person," Sydney said of Xana during her early years when they were close, sharing gymnastics and a deep friendship. If you were with her, you were laughing the whole time. When Sydney heard about Xana's murder, she'd been preparing for an evening training session with her students. The news was crushing. "And then I coached. I was a hot mess all night watching the girls," she told a reporter, "because it's kind of like watching me and Xana's relationship. The relationship they have with each other." She could remember Xana as the little girl in a blue and white leotard, bows holding back her hair, the two of them together, sometimes wearing their medals around their necks after a weekend competition. We were really, really close in middle school, Sydney told News Nation. Always knew I could count on her, even now. She hesitated, her breath catching. It's just a lot, she said. Of the thousands of photos of Xana circulating online after her murder, she looked happy in each. In her TikTok videos, she was dancing or laughing, performing skits. She was jumping. She was holding out her arm, just like in the gymnastics photos of herself as a little girl. She was still little, smiling at the camera in her Instagram photos. It's almost like losing another daughter, Sydney's father told ABC. His eyes bloodshot with sadness. Same age as my daughter. This could have been her. Chapter 24. When Xana and Jasmine were growing up, many people thought they were twins, even though Jasmine was 2 years older. They had the same high cheekbones, the warm toned skin, the long dark hair that hung straight down. When Xana was older, she wore half shirts and high waisted shorts in the summer, Carhartt beanies in the winter, her hair braided into long pigtails tucked into the collar of her puffy coat. She painted her nails red for formals, drank beer out of the plastic cups, wore a scrunchie on her wrist sometimes. Her personality was magnetic, and Jasmine would often get upset when the two were teenagers because she thought her own friends liked Xana more than they liked Jasmine herself. Xana's friend Emily had a big sister who was friends with Jasmine, and the two older girls would side eye their younger siblings for grabbing all the attention and for generally being more cool. It was just an undeniable fact the older siblings thought one day begrudgingly learned to deal with. Emily now remembered Xana through a stream of tears at a post-fall service. She was my other half, Emily said. Everyone knew we were two in one deal. They'd been friends since the day they'd met. She was an amazing friend, comedian, pop star, therapist, sister, girlfriend, and daughter. This girl was a light in everyone's life. Emily constantly told Xana how much she loved her. After high school, they'd gone to different colleges but still made time to see each other as often as possible. One time, Xana had even convinced Emily to drive to Moscow during a snowstorm because the two girls were missing each other. Emily said Xana guilt tripped her into the journey, complaining that they never had enough time together. Each time Emily would visit at the U of I, Xana would show her friend off, as if for the first time, even though everybody had already met her before. She would reintroduce me and then introduce me again to all of her college friends as this is my best friend. She's Asian, as if they couldn't figure that one out. Emily smiled through her tears. She always told me that if she were to die tomorrow, Emily said, the tears flowing more heavily, she would be okay with it because she had lived every day to the fullest. Not that she really believed that was a possibility. She knew she was going to make it big one day, Emily said at something. She told me that if she even got famous, she would bring me along to enjoy the life with her. Their lives had seemed to offer endless possibilities and endless years. We talked about our dream wedding and how we were going to be each other's bridesmaids. We talked about what kind of moms we were going to be. I always said I wanted 3 kids, and she said she'd probably be the single one and have no kids because she'll be the cool aunt. She choked on her words. Life is so unfair and unpredictable. My heart aches knowing I can't see her again in this lifetime. The cool aunt. It made perfect sense. Dana had never forgotten all her Aunt Kim had done for her when her parents couldn't cope. While Xana was growing up, her mom had more than 40 interactions with the police in North Idaho. Most were for possession of drugs or drug paraphernalia, but some were more serious. She'd once been convicted of injury to a child for exposing her daughters to her drug use. Kara wasn't a violent woman, but she was struggling. It showed in her mugshots, her face progressively skinnier with age, but also with the wear and tear that comes from prolonged substance abuse. Her hair long, getting grayer at the temples, her eyes more sunken. She was infrequently in Xana's life, but she was still her mother. Kara's Facebook page, like many mothers of a certain area, often reflected her love for her children. "What did your daughter inherit from you?" read the caption of a 2019 name test post that she tagged Xana in. Name test offered a quasi spiritual astrological reading comparing a mother's and daughter's names. Just like you, Xana is incredibly genuine and loving, Kara's results read. She has inherited your heart of gold and has seen how happy you are when you can help your loved ones. But she has also learned from you how to be fearless in the face of challenges. Your strong, nonconformist personality has inspired her to never lose her fighting spirit, her pride in who she is. Santa's mom was trying. There were photos of her children and of herself looking healthy as recently as 2019. Xana had been her little girl, even if she couldn't care for her the way she had wanted to. She had watched Xana from afar, proud of her gymnastics accomplishments and her durable spirit when she was younger, and proud of the woman Xana had been growing into. At one point that year, Kara posted, "One of the best feelings in the world is when you hug someone you love and they hug you back even tighter." 3 years later, her daughter was dead and Kara had relapsed. Days after the murders, she was back in jail. Chapter 25. While in high school in Post Falls, Xana was on the volleyball, track, and soccer teams. She held down a job as well, working as a server at the Coeur d'Alene, Texas Roadhouse between the Dollar Tree and the Red Lobster. The view from the restaurant parking lot was less suburban, less beyond where the rolling green foothills leading into the Coeur d'Alene National Forest and its 3/4 of a million acres, which were among the most pristine in America, home to the grizzly bears, wolves, cougars, and wolverines. Xana's home with her little sister, or with her sister and father, and their dog Shoeshine was modest and tidy, with 4 bedrooms, dark hardwood floors, and a backyard with a green fenced-in lawn. Life with her father now was completely different than it had been in Xana's younger days. Jeff had started his own firm, Coronado Construction, building anything from small engineered decks to large impressive houses with spiral staircases. He took the girls on family vacations, which Xana loved, and in time her lifestyle was similar to the comfortable one she'd lived with her Aunt Kim. She graduated from Post Falls High School in 2020, and by late that summer had moved to Moscow, where she was majoring in marketing at the U of I and joined the Pi Beta Phi sorority. At Pi Phi, she became close to another freshman, a girl named Ella, who said after Xana's death that Xana cared about her relationship more than anything else, and that is the best quality anyone can have. At the Post Falls Memorial, Ella remembered the time at the end of their freshman year, after many of the other students had gone home for the summer, when she and Xana decided it would be a blast to get a kiddie pool and try to swim in it. The Moscow heat was already scorching. They found a blow up pool at the local store, then ran across the parking lot with it over their heads and stuffed it into Ella's car. They spent that day and many others that summer soaking in the shin deep water that the pool held. Actually, swimming, they discovered right away, wasn't an option. It's not much, but it's about the little things and the spontaneous things that don't seem interesting, but they become the best days of your life because of the people you're around. Ella said, a lot of my best days had Xana there. At the Mad Greek in downtown Moscow, a small family-owned restaurant where both Xana and Maddie worked, a co-worker named Isla hadn't gotten a chance to know either of the two girls well, but they had trained her when she was the first hired, and she remembers Xana as kind and helpful. Both she and Maddie were sweet, Isla says, a hint of tears in her eyes. Can y'all still hear me okay? Thank you for the ones that are coming in. Soon after she'd started at the restaurant, Isla would be wearing a black rubber memorial bracelet on her left wrist. The names of the four murder victims, including her co-workers, printed in the university's signature gold and yellow. The same bracelet appeared on the wrist of the daytime bartender at the corner club, a girl with blonde hair who slightly resembled Maddie, and on the wrist of baristas in local coffee shops, students walking through campus, pedestrians in town hurrying to their jobs or stepping into stores or getting into their cars. The yellow of the font matched the yellow flowers Xana held in photographs, a small sunflower behind her ear in one of them as she posed beside a river, her hair draping forward over a halter top, dappled sunlight on the water. Chapter 26. Xana appeared in police body cam footage when the Moscow PD were once again called to 1122 King Road after a noise complaint just after midnight on September 2nd, 2022, less than 4 hours after their warning to Maddie over the phone. Country singer Lee Brice played over an outdoor Bluetooth speaker on the second floor patio around the back of the house. A young man stood on the patio with his back to the approaching police officer who spotlighted the area with his flashlight. Moscow PD, the officer announced. A young woman tried to go back inside through the slider. Turn the music down, the officer now shouted up from the weeds. They didn't. He shouted it again, gesturing with his flashlight. The music stopped. The officer told them, I need somebody to come to the door. The young man on the patio kept his back to the officer, who then added, the music stays off. Party's over. The officer clicked his flashlight off, walking past Xana's bedroom on the second floor and then past Bethany Funk's on the first floor. As the ground sloped, hold on a second. As the ground sloped downward toward the communal parking area, the officer and his partner stood at the front door in the dark at first. When Xana conveniently and eventually opened it, the officer shone his flashlight at her. She was barefoot, wearing black shorts and a red hoodie. Her identification in her hand, her eyes looked wobbly into their sockets as searching for the rest. Hello, she said. Hello, miss. What's your name? The officer asked. Xana, she said pleasantly. Xana, the officer repeated it back to her, his flashlight in her eyes. Do you live here? Yes. She pushed her hair out of her face. Okay, did Megan talk to you earlier? No. Okay, does Megan live here? Dana looked confused. Megan? The officer's partner checked his notepad. Megan Mogan? Maddie Mogan, yes, Xana said. Maddie Mogan. The first officer corrected himself. She does live here. Xana seemed caught off guard, searching for words, possibly intoxicated. Sorry, she is at the club. She's 21. I'm just going to bed. I have a couple of friends over, but this is my idea. She began to show the police officer their driver's license, turning it over in her hand and staring at it, but the officer didn't appear interested. Have you talked to Maddie tonight? The first cop repeated, Yes, I have, Xana said, the flashlight in her eyes. She's at the corner club. Okay, did she tell you anything about anything that happened earlier or anything like that? Honestly, not really. I've just been here, just trying to go to bed. In the hot, wide open beam of the officer's flashlight, Xana's fingers clutching her ID made shadows against the siding of the house. The officer took the ID finally and handed it to his partner. Xana seemed more nervous than the situation called for, but then she'd grown up with the police encounters that didn't necessarily end well. She again explained that she was not 21, but that her roommates were. We're not here to talk about the alcohol stuff, the officer told her. Okay, yeah. Xana seemed to relax finally. But this is the second noise complaint that we've had here tonight. I'm sorry, Xana said. So this time it was the blonde gal and then the guy on the back porch playing music. I sincerely apologize, Xana told him. I am just going to bed, so okay, just so you do understand, you could be getting a misdemeanor citation for this, which means you have to go in front of a judge and explain why you couldn't keep the people in your house quiet. Okay, Xana said, we've already talked to Maddie once. The only reason she's not getting a ticket is because she's not standing here in front of me. But I'm telling you right now, we have to come back, you're getting a ticket. Okay, so I'm not right now, Xana asked him. I'm fine right now. You're not getting a ticket right now. I'm just trying to go to bed. Okay. I mean, I understand you guys. You're coming here. I'm just going. She gesticulated awkwardly, struggling for the next words. Her body seemed to be losing balance from exhaustion. We could hear you clear down the road when we were coming up here. The officer told her as a final word. I'm so sorry, Xana said. We're past the point of having polite conversations, okay? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Xana told him. Eventually, the officer's partner pointed to the upstairs window and asked, Did the blonde gal and the guy up there, are they roommates too? He was pointing to Dylan Morton's second floor bedroom. I'm sorry, what? He repeated, the blonde gal and the guy that's upstairs. Are they roommates too? None of my roommates are here. Are home. Xana said, Those are all my friends. Before leaving, the first officer asked Xana, Do you understand 100% what's going to happen? I understand, Xana said. I'm just going to tell everyone, get the fuck out of here. The two police officers eventually turned back toward the driveway. You take care, one said to her. They snapped their flashlights off, and the body cam footage went black. Chapter 27. Dana's mother, who sometimes went by the name Kara Kernodle, but more often Kara Northington, was arrested on drug-related charges in the days after Xana's murder. While detained in the Kootenai County Jail in Coeur d'Alene, Kara was provided with a public defender, Ann Taylor, who would serve as her legal counsel as she navigated the complicated court processes. Taylor had also represented Maddie Mogan's family after similar drug-related brushes with the law. This wasn't unusual in a small, and sometimes claustrophobic legal system of the far north, where very few attorneys choose to live. Northington was kept up to speed on the King Road homicide investigation by following the news from jail. But in December, the courts allowed Kara temporary release to attend the memorial service held for Xana and the other three victims at a post-fall church. Xana's older sister, Jasmine, spoke to the large audience from the podium, reading from notes on her cell phone. She was my baby sister, but she was so much wiser and experienced so much more in life than I ever have, Jasmine said of Xana, eventually adding through sniffles. She was so positive and light-hearted and understood the gift of life more than anyone I know. Standing beside her, Xana's father, Jeff, kept his head down and deep in his pockets. I was so happy that she was dating Ethan, Jasmine said. Xana had never had a boyfriend before, and my dad and I wondered if she was ever going to get one. She smiled at the memory of her sister finding love with Ethan. The way she would talk and smile about him was something I'd never seen her do before. She truly loved him so much, and I know he had so much love for her. After a beat, she added about all four of the victims. It's comforting to know that they are all watching down on us from heaven now. Jasmine was in tears by the time she ended her remarks. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to get comfortable here. Hope y'all can still hear me. I'm all over the place. I'm just trying to get some comfort without laying in one place too long and hurting my back. You know what I'm saying? I love you so much, Xana, she said. When she finished, she hugged her father. Jeff spoke next. That kid shone light to the day, he said of Xana, smiling as he fought back the tears. She taught me how to be a dad, and I didn't know that until she was gone. Xana's sister stood beside him, sometimes shaking with sadness while listening to her dad. She really became the woman she was going to become, he added. The last time he had seen Xana was a week before her murder. He had visited Moscow for the weekend and stayed in a nearby hotel. He had fixed the broken lock on her front door. Oh, he had fixed the broken lock on the front door at the King Road residence for Xana and her roommates, according to Xana's mother. So, how did it go from he fixed the front door lock to Xana's door, who had reportedly been in contact with Xana recently? So I've never heard that. Not one time. It has always been reported that it was Xana's door that was having the door fixed. This says it was the front door of the residence. The house had looked clean. Xana was taking care of business as far as Jeff was concerned. She was even looking after him, he told the mourners. After he consumed alcohol during their visit, Xana had taken the car keys away from him. You had too much to drink, Dad. You can't drive, Xana told him. We'll get you a ride to your hotel. He smiled at the memory of Xana being the responsible one. And that wasn't unusual, he remarked. She would often look after her roommate, too. She was being the mom to all the kids. Xana, whose mom had been missing for much of her life, had learned how to nurture and protect others. He was happy to see that everything was just about as good as it ever could have been, he said. Xana's mother did not make public remarks at the memorial. Instead, Kara fled, then got high for 4 days. She was rearrested, but remained free on her own reconnaissance while waiting for the court dates. She did not appear for those dates. She absconded to Spokane, Washington, where she reportedly got a hotel room and again got high on methamphetamine and fentanyl. While we were still on the run, News Nation was able to get a hold of her on the cell phone. She spoke to them on a split screen from inside a vehicle. Her voice sounded grainy and full of pain. She wore a bandana on her head and looked malnourished. Her eyes were sunken. What appeared to be her life belongings were stuffed into the back seat, the neck of a guitar poking into the frame. She choked on her tears. "Are you going to be all right?" the anchor Ashley Banfield asked her. "I hope so," Kara said. Eventually, Kara was apprehended and returned to Kootenai County. The Daily Mail spoke to her from jail. "I relapsed after my daughter's killing," she told them. "Then 4 days after that, I got picked up on new charges. Then I didn't go to my next court date because I was still getting high." Somewhere along the road, Xana's mom had taken a few wrong turns. Now it was hard to find her way back. She was suffering from drug withdrawal in jail and still trying to wrap her head around what all happened to her daughter. "It's a fucking nightmare," Northington cried into the phone. Jeff Kernodle, too, was hounded by the press for interviews. He allowed his local station in Avondale, Arizona to ask him a few questions over the phone. He was reportedly too distraught to appear on camera. His answers were brief. He had last heard from Xana on the night of the murders, he told the station. "At midnight," he said, "and she was fine. Her death was still so hard to comprehend." He had found a minor solace in the autopsy report he'd been shown. Xana had apparently fought back against her killer. There were bruises on her arms. She was a tough kid, her dad said. He gave no more interviews. Let me pause for a minute. Have y'all heard that? That that the dad had came and fixed the front door lock? I'm sorry I'm not paying attention to the chat. I don't know what's going on. I know you're apologizing a lot. Whatever it is, I hope it's okay. Because I'm reading from a iPad and I'm, I'm not able to have the chat in front of me like I normally do. Part 6. Chapter 28. When Ethan Chapin's mother gave birth to her triplets, Ethan was first out of the womb, followed by his siblings at exactly 1 minute intervals. Ethan and his younger brother Hunter and sister Maisie shared an unusual bond. Of the roughly 3.6 million births in America each year, only about 3,000 are triplet births. Jim and Stacy felt especially blessed by an instantaneously full family. The Chapin trio and their parents lived in Mount Vernon, Washington, on the banks of the Skagit River in the Skagit Valley farm country famous for its tulip industry. In the springtime, the tulip farms were like wide rainbows of color nestled between green forest and the covered mountain peaks that lined the horizon. The Chapin home was spacious, on an acre of lush green grass. Jim and Stacy owned Pacific Belting and Supplies, selling and installing industrialized conveyor belts, and made a nice living. Stacy had also been a teacher early on. The triplets attended the small public Conway School in Mount Vernon from kindergarten through 8th grade. It was a close-knit place with parents volunteering for field trips and in the classrooms. Outside school, the Chapins went on family vacations as the kids got older. They had the money and the love, and they didn't skimp on either with their kids. They traveled to the Dominican Republic and kayaked in the sea. They surfed in Mexico on board twice as long as their kids were. They walked on the beaches in the Bahamas with swim towels draped around their necks. Closer to home, they chartered boats. They golfed together, played tennis, and I picked apples. Even just around the house, the family was active. They planted a box garden on their sprawling lawn and lined it with freshly cut wood chips and green sprouts catching full sunlight. They played basketball in their driveway after dinner with the sun going down and the cloud thinning and their American flag occasionally waving in the breeze. All three of the kids briefly played the clarinet. Ethan enjoyed sports above anything. He played club soccer for years, traveling to weekend tournaments with his brother and sister. At the Conway School, girls and boys played on the same team. Maisie, Hunter, and Ethan all practiced and played together in their matching blue shirts. The only difference was the red-headed Maisie wore to keep her long hair pushed back. The red headband, I'm sorry, I said red-headed. The red headband Maisie wore to keep her long hair pulled back. Conway Superintendent Jeff Cravey spoke to a reporter about Ethan's sporting prowess. He was an amazing basketball player and often got into competitions with staff, especially during staff versus student basketball games, Cravey said. Our love language with him was sports, his mother Stacy told another reporter. She had followed NFL football so she could bond with Ethan to a greater degree. She would send him text messages about the game she was watching. Stacy Chapin knew that sharing her children's passions would keep the family close. All three kids were athletic, so the family's life revolved around physical activities, especially when it came to Ethan. That and country music, his mom said, were his obsessions, and he was a good natured goof. He was definitely the comedian of the three. He always had something funny to say, was always laughing. Ethan's youth basketball coach, the tattooed and bearded Tyler Amaya, said that to coach him was a pleasure. Ethan had been one of his favorite players and one of the top players on their Skagit County team since elementary school. When he was already tall for his age, he would practice twice a week with Amaya at the basketball gym in Burlington, 10 minutes from his home. He always gave you that sincere, genuine eye contact. Amaya told the local Fox station you knew he was locked in with whatever you were telling him. Amaya and Ethan had stayed in contact over the years, even when Ethan was in college. Amaya could see a bright future for the boy. He lit up many of my dark days, Amaya told another reporter. There days where maybe things went wrong for me. Ethan comes into the gym, and all of a sudden, everything is meaningful again. I don't have kids, but if I had a daughter, I'd want her to be with Ethan. Big boned and broad shouldered, Ethan was among the largest wherever he went. It was hard to imagine him falling prey to violence. In TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube videos, Ethan was always smiling. He wore shorts and shook his booty to any song that was playing, dancing in the living room, in his bedroom, in the kitchen, always dancing, always gyrating for a quick laugh. With his strong legs bouncing across the floor, he got drunk with his friends, danced while wearing a woman's bikini top, played beer pong, dressed up as a hot dog, used an upturned safety cone as a bullhorn, sang country music into his fist like it was a microphone. When he was young, he was clean shaven. Later, he grew a mustache. He shot hoops in the sun. He jumped over couches. He looked at the camera. Somebody was pointing at him. He gave it that peace sign, like a hello, but also an exit. Chapter 29. Ethan and his siblings went to Mount Vernon High School, a stately-looking brick and stone institution that brought Ivy League campuses to mind. The gym and basketball court still had its original 1950s era wooden bleachers, heavily lacquered and polished to a shine. Each side of this nearby weight room was fully stocked with state-of-the-art lifting platforms for power and Olympic-style lifts. The Seattle Times referred to Mount Vernon's athletics facility as the gold standard of high school gymnasiums and the Sistine Chapel of Washington gyms. For somebody like Ethan, it was perfect. He played basketball for the school, and even as a sophomore, he was already 6 foot, tied with another boy for the tallest on the Bulldogs team. In a team photo from the era, Ethan is resting his arm across the shoulder of his brother Hunter, also a forward on the team. Hunter, standing 6'3", holds the basketball between his hands like a weapon. Even on the court, they stood side by side. Basketball, more than other sports, held Ethan's heart. He refereed, he used basketball on the weekends in Mount Vernon and had a knack for communicating the nuances of the game to younger kids. His own positive experiences with his youth coach had rubbed off. He was shaping into a solid player and was doing well at Mount Vernon, but then the pandemic halted the school's regular operations. Ethan and his siblings left Washington State near the end of their junior year, immersing themselves in the natural world of the family's North Idaho summer home. They got jobs at the Hills Resort, a getaway loaded with lakeside and forest view cabins abutting the very blue, very pristine Priest Lake. At Hills, there was a restaurant with a stone hearth, boating and canoeing, kayaking options galore, and volleyball and tennis accommodations. The manicured flowered grounds led directly into the seemingly endless forested hills full of hammocks and maples, tamaricks, which turn bright red in the fall. There was even a nearby golf course with guest boast Mirage. The outdoor decks sat hundreds beneath its red canvas umbrellas and had a view of the waters where bugs dappled the surface and fish jumped to catch them. By autumn, the family had returned to Washington, but not to Mount Vernon High School, which was still dealing with pandemic shutdowns. The triplets finished their senior year of high school remotely. Ethan also worked in the field of Skagit Valley Tulip Farm, a 5-acre parcel, a nutrient-rich soil brimming with dozens of varieties of vibrant tulips. Ethan, like many of the local kids, went to work preparing, seeding, and harvesting the land. According to his crew leader, Andrew Miller, Ethan set the bar for showing up with a smile and making everyone else happy to be on the job, regardless of the weather of the work. And the weather and the work could be nasty at times, with plenty of rain and an equal measure of hard labor to make things uncomfortable. As a strong kid with a big heart, Ethan was the kind of guy who would do the hardest jobs and never complain, Miller said of him. Ethan and his siblings went back to Priest Lake for another summer working at Hills Resort before all three headed to the University of Idaho. It was the summer after their senior year, but they'd really had no senior year at all, not in the traditional sense. There'd been none of the merrymaking that often accompanies those last months of secondary education. No homecoming, no prom with its tuxedo and gowns, no decorating our lockers or vehicle to celebrate graduation. They'd missed all of that, and it was frustrating. But at the hills, they could ease back into the beautiful North Idaho landscape and dream about college, which hopefully would be accompanied by a return to normal social lives. For now, Hills Resort wasn't such a bad stopover. They worked wherever the resort needed them. For Ethan, that was usually in the restaurant where he bussed tables or worked as an expediter in the kitchen. A liaison between the cooks and the wait staff, making sure that the food got plated and served on time. Even when Ethan wasn't scheduled to work, he would sometimes sit table 42, the tall round table in the resort dining room, while Maisie worked her shift waiting tables. He'd watch her work, and if she got busy and needed help, Ethan would jump into action. There were times when Ethan had just gotten off the lake from boating and would notice his friends in the restaurant getting slammed with customers. He would run into the dining area in the wet swim trunks and flip flops to help out. If he wasn't working or boating, he was on the volleyball court or playing another sport, and always he was surrounded by friends. After his murder, there were hundreds of comments about Ethan on the Hills Resort Facebook page from people who had remembered him working in the restaurant those summers. Everywhere in the comment, there were bright red hearts. And that's where I'm going to stop tonight. Something about reading just takes it out of you. Thank you so much for being here tonight for this second live. I went live earlier and, I had a good turnout. I appreciate everybody that's in here tonight to listen to the reading. I probably won't read until I get back home, but I hope that you are enjoying this because it really gives a different perspective of these individuals that we've heard so little about and so much about. It humanizes their existence. It really does. And it's so sad to think that these four who had such vibrant lives and vibrant futures were cut down so quickly and also demonstrated so callously by so many. But y'all have a wonderful night. And as I always say, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Maestro, cue that music.